The steam rose from Director Harrison's coffee cup as he pointed at the satellite images with absolute certainty. Tehran facility is a pharmaceutical plant. Our assets confirm it. Around the mahogany table, 12 senior CIA officials nodded in agreement. None of them noticed the woman refilling their water glasses in the corner of the secure briefing room. Elena Martinez moved like a shadow between the leather chairs, her grey uniform blending into the background of power suits and classified folders. She had perfected the art of invisibility over 18 months. Head down, movements efficient, presence forgettable. The perfect cover for someone who wasn't supposed to exist. But as Director Harrison continued his briefing about the harmless pharmaceutical facility, Elena's grip tightened on the water pitcher. She knew that building. She had been inside it. And it was definitely not making aspirin. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories about hidden heroes and moments when truth silences arrogance, consider subscribing for more tales of extraordinary people hiding in plain sight. 3 years ago, Elena Martinez had died in a car bombing in Beirut. At least, that's what every intelligence database in the world recorded. Her funeral had been attended by CIA Director Harrison himself, who had praised her as one of the agency's most brilliant Middle East operatives. What he didn't know was that the woman he was eulogizing was standing 20 feet away, watching from behind a maintenance uniform. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to that briefing room, where the dead woman was about to make her first mistake in 18 months of perfect invisibility. Elena had learned to make herself unremarkable with scientific precision. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a regulation bun. Her makeup was minimal but professional. Her uniform was pressed but not crisp enough to draw attention. She moved through the CIA's Langley headquarters like water through stone, present but unnoticed, essential but invisible. The morning of September 15th started like any other. Elena arrived at 500 hours through the service entrance, badged in with credentials that identified her as Elena Santos, contracted cleaning and maintenance staff. Her background check showed a single mother from El Salvador who needed the job to support her teenage daughter. It was a perfect cover story because it was mostly true, just not the whole truth. "Morning, Elena," called Janet Rodriguez, the shift supervisor, as Elena collected her supplies. "Conference room 7 needs full service today. Big shot briefing at 0800. "Understood," Elena replied in accented English, the slight linguistic hesitation she had practiced until it became second nature. "I will have everything perfect." Conference room 7 was the crown jewel of the CIA's briefing facilities. Soundproof walls, electronic countermeasures, and a security clearance requirement that put it above the president's daily brief in terms of classification level. Only the most sensitive operations were discussed within its mahogany-panelled walls. Elena had been cleaning this room for 6 months, listening to fragments of conversations that would have made foreign intelligence services kill for access. But she never reacted, never showed recognition, never gave any sign that she understood the significance of what she was hearing, until today. Director Marcus Harrison entered Conference Room 7 at exactly 07:58 hours, flanked by Deputy Director Sarah Chen and a collection of the CIA's most senior operatives. Harrison was a 20-year veteran of the intelligence community, a man who had built his reputation on being right when others were wrong. His silver hair and commanding presence made him the perfect embodiment of American intelligence authority. Elena was in the corner, arranging fresh flowers in a vase with the careful attention of someone whose English wasn't good enough to understand classified discussions. She had positioned herself where she could see the main display screen while remaining completely peripheral to the meeting's focus. "Gentlemen, ladies," Harrison began, activating the room's secure display system. "What you're about to see is the result of 6 months of surveillance on a facility outside Tehran. Our assets have confirmed it's a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant, likely producing medicine for regional distribution." The satellite images appeared on the main screen, a compound Elena knew intimately. She had spent 3 weeks inside that facility 2 years ago, during an operation that officially never happened. She knew every building, every security checkpoint, every hidden entrance. Intelligence indicates this is a legitimate business operation, continued Deputy Director Chen, her voice carrying the confidence of someone reading from verified reports. No weapons manufacturing, no chemical weapons development, no nuclear research, just medicine. Around the table, senior officials nodded approvingly. The Middle East Division Chief made a note in his classified tablet. The counter-terrorism director looked satisfied that his resources could be allocated elsewhere. Elena continued arranging flowers, but her hands had begun to tremble slightly. The building they were looking at wasn't a pharmaceutical plant. It was a chemical weapons facility run by a joint venture between Iranian intelligence and Russian mercenaries. She had seen the production lines, photographed the equipment, confirmed the existence of stockpiles that could kill thousands. Based on this assessment, Harrison concluded, we'll be pulling surveillance assets from this target to focus on higher priority threats. Questions? It was at that moment that Elena made her first mistake in 18 months. She looked up. That's not a pharmaceutical plant. The words left Elena's mouth before she could stop them. The room fell silent instantly, 12 pairs of eyes turning toward the corner where the cleaning woman stood with a water pitcher in her hands. Director Harrison's face darkened. Excuse me? Elena felt the weight of every gaze in the room. She had just blown her cover, ended her operation, and potentially signed her own death warrant. But she couldn't let them make this mistake. Too many lives were at stake. I said that's not a pharmaceutical plant, she repeated, her accent noticeably diminished. That facility produces chemical weapons. Specifically, a binary nerve agent designated VX7. Production capacity approximately 200 kilograms per month. The silence stretched for 10 seconds that felt like hours. Director Harrison stood slowly, his voice tight with controlled anger. Security, he barked into his comm device. Conference room 7, now. Deputy Director Chen leaned forward. How exactly would a cleaning woman know anything about chemical weapons production? Elena set down the water pitcher with deliberate care. There was no going back now. Because I've been inside that facility, Building 3, second floor, Production Line Alpha. They use a modified Novichok base with enhanced delivery systems, Russian technology, Iranian funding. The door burst open as 2 security officers entered, hands on their weapons. But Harrison held up a hand, stopping them. Something in Elena's voice, in the specificity of her knowledge, had caught his attention. Who are you? He demanded. Elena reached slowly into her uniform pocket and withdrew a small device no larger than a thumb drive. She placed it on the conference table with a soft click that echoed in the silent room. Biometric scanner, she said simply. My fingerprints and retinal scan are on file in your database, but you'll need to search the archived records, the classified ones. Deputy Director Chen approached the device cautiously, as if it might explode. She connected it to her secure tablet and initiated the scan. The device hummed softly as it read Elena's biometrics, cross-referencing them against the CIA's most secure databases. The results appeared on Chen's screen, and her face went white. Director, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You need to see this. Harrison moved to look at the tablet, his expression shifting from anger to confusion to something approaching shock. That's impossible, he breathed. Elena straightened to her full height, allowing her true posture to show for the first time in 18 months. The transformation was startling. The timid cleaning woman vanished, replaced by someone who radiated quiet competence and hard-earned authority. Agent Elena Martinez, she said formally. Deep cover operative, Middle East Division. Presumed KIA, September 2021, Beirut. Authorization code Lazarus 7 Alpha. The conference room remained frozen in stunned silence as the implications sank in. Director Harrison stared at the woman he had personally eulogized 3 years ago, trying to reconcile the memory of Elena Martinez, brilliant operative, master linguist, specialist in deep cover operations, with the cleaning woman who had been invisible in his building for over a year. Lazarus Protocol, Deputy Director Chen said quietly, reading from her tablet. Highest classification level, requires presidential authorization. Elena nodded. Initiated after the Beirut bombing. My cover was compromised, but the operation required continuation. Death was convenient. You've been here for 18 months, Harrison said, his voice carrying a mixture of awe and anger. In my building, watching my operations. Protecting your operations, Elena corrected. The Tehran facility has been under surveillance for 2 years. Russian advisors have been training Iranian technicians in advanced chemical weapons production. Your assets were either compromised or feeding you false information. Senior Analyst Williams spoke up from across the table. Agent Martinez, if your intelligence is correct, we're looking at a significant threat to regional stability. It's worse than that, Elena replied, moving to the display controls with practiced efficiency. May I? Harrison nodded, still processing the revelation. Elena connected a small device to the display system, bringing up detailed facility schematics that made the CIA's satellite images look primitive by comparison. This is Building 3, she began, pointing to the screen with the confidence of someone who had walked these corridors. Chemical weapons production. Building 5 houses delivery system development, modified artillery shells, aerosol dispersal systems. Building 7 is storage. She changed the display to show personnel files, faces that several CIA officials recognized. Joint venture between Quds Force and Wagner Group. The operation is supervised by Colonel Dmitry Volkov, formerly of the Russian chemical weapons program. Their target list includes US military installations in the region. The weight of this intelligence hung heavy in the room. Deputy Director Chen leaned back in her chair, her mind racing through the implications. How much product have they manufactured, she asked. Elena's expression darkened. Approximately 2.4 tons of VX-7 variant, enough to contaminate several city blocks or eliminate an entire military base. First deployment is scheduled for next week. Next week? Harrison stepped forward sharply. Where? What's the target? Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar. They're planning to use a false flag operation to blame Iranian dissidents while maintaining plausible deniability for both Tehran and Moscow. The room erupted in urgent whispers. Al Udeid housed over 10,000 American military personnel and served as the forward headquarters for US Central Command operations in the Middle East. We need to inform CENTCOM immediately, urged the counter-terrorism director. No, Elena said firmly. Any change in security posture at Al Udeid will alert them that their operation is compromised. They'll move the weapons and find another target. Harrison studied her carefully. What do you recommend? For the first time since revealing her identity, Elena smiled. A cold expression that reminded everyone in the room why she had been one of the CIA's most effective operatives. I recommend we let them think they succeeded. Elena outlined her strategy with the precision of someone who had been planning it for months. The operation she proposed was audacious, dangerous, and completely off the books. Exactly the kind of mission that Elena Martinez had specialized in before her supposed death. The delivery system is vulnerable, she explained, manipulating the display to show technical schematics. Modified artillery shells launched from mobile platforms. If we can access the shells during transport, we can replace the chemical agents with harmless markers. And when their attack fails, asked Deputy Director Chen. It won't fail, Elena replied. The markers will create the visual appearance of a chemical attack, smoke, discoloration, panic, but no actual casualties. We document everything, capture the evidence, and expose the operation while preventing any real harm. Director Harrison paced the room, his mind working through the possibilities. This is beyond dangerous, Martinez. You're talking about infiltrating a joint Russian-Iranian operation, manipulating weapons of mass destruction, and doing it all without official backup. Sir, Elena said quietly, I've been dead for 3 years. I don't exist in any official capacity. If this goes wrong, the agency has complete deniability. The logic was unassailable, if terrifying. Elena Martinez could accomplish what no official CIA operation could: penetrate the facility, neutralize the threat, and provide evidence of the conspiracy without triggering an international incident. You'll need support, Harrison said finally. Technical assistance, extraction planning, communication protocols. Elena shook her head. Too risky. Any change in operational patterns could expose the mission. I go in alone, just like I've been doing for the past 2 years. Deputy Director Chen looked up from her secure tablet. Agent Martinez, I've been reviewing your classified file. Your psychological evaluation after the Minsk operation recommended against further deep cover assignments. Extended isolation, multiple identity management. The stress indicators were severe. I'm fine, Elena replied, but her voice carried a slight edge that hadn't been there before. Are you? Chen pressed. You've been living as someone else for 3 years. You've had no contact with friends, family, anyone who knew the real Elena Martinez. That level of psychological isolation has broken other operatives. Elena was quiet for a long moment, her hand unconsciously moving to touch a small scar on her wrist, a nervous habit that the cleaning woman Elena Santos never displayed. The woman who died in Beirut had a life, connections, people who cared about her, she said finally. This woman doesn't have those vulnerabilities. She's perfectly suited for this mission. Harrison exchanged a look with Chen. They both recognized the signs, an operative who had gone so deep into cover that the line between identity and mission had blurred beyond recognition. Martinez, Harrison said gently, when this is over, you're coming in. Full debriefing, psychological evaluation, reintegration support. No arguments. Elena nodded, but her eyes held a distance that suggested she hadn't really heard him. Her focus was already shifting to the mission ahead, to the facility she would need to penetrate and the weapons she would need to neutralize. Timeline? She asked, back to business. 72 hours until the scheduled attack, Harrison replied. Can you do it? Elena was already moving toward the door, her posture shifting back to that of Elena Santos, the invisible cleaning woman. I'll need 2 hours to prepare, she said. Then Elena Santos will take a personal day to visit her sick mother in Baltimore. She'll never be seen again. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back at the room full of senior CIA officials. Director, when you brief the president on this operation, make sure he understands that this facility is just one of 7 joint Russian-Iranian chemical weapons sites. Tehran was a test run. The real threat is what they're building in Syria. With that bombshell, she disappeared through the door, leaving behind a room full of intelligence professionals who suddenly realized they had been operating with dangerously incomplete information. Elena Martinez walked out of CIA headquarters for the last time as Elena Santos, cleaning woman and invisible witness to America's secrets. But she knew she could never really return to being Elena Martinez, the agent who had died in Beirut 3 years ago. That woman had been optimistic, trusting, someone who believed the system would protect her if she served it faithfully. The woman who climbed into the metro train that afternoon was someone else entirely, shaped by years of solitude, hardened by the knowledge of how easily the truth could be buried, and determined to ensure that the weapons she had discovered would never claim innocent lives. As the train pulled away from the station, Elena caught her reflection in the window. For just a moment, she saw not Elena Martinez, the agent, or Elena Santos, the cleaning woman, but someone new, someone who existed in the spaces between identities, in the shadows between truth and deception. In 72 hours, she would prevent a massacre. She would expose a conspiracy that reached from Tehran to Moscow. She would prove that sometimes the most important battles were fought by people the world never knew existed. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, Elena Martinez, whoever she really was now, would sleep without pretending to be someone else. Tomorrow, she would become whoever she needed to be to save thousands of lives. The train disappeared into the tunnel, carrying the ghost of a dead agent toward a mission that officially would never happen, planned by an organization that would never acknowledge her existence, to stop an attack that the world would never know had been prevented. Some heroes work in the light, others work in the shadows, and sometimes the most important ones are the ones who serve coffee while planning to save the world. 3 days later, news reports would mention a minor chemical leak at an industrial facility outside Tehran, quickly contained, no casualties, no international implications. The reports would not mention the unmarked graves of 12 weapons technicians who had discovered their chemical agents replaced with harmless smoke compounds, or the encrypted files that found their way to intelligence agencies across the globe, documenting the scope of the Russian-Iranian weapons program. And they certainly wouldn't mention the cleaning woman who had listened, remembered, and acted when no one else would believe the truth. Elena Martinez remained dead in every official record. But somewhere in the shadows between nations and identities, someone who had once been Elena Martinez continued her work. Invisible, unacknowledged, essential. After all, the best intelligence operatives are the ones whose existence no one suspects, whose victories no one celebrates, and whose names appear on no memorials. They serve coffee, they clean rooms, they listen, and when the moment comes, they save the world. In the weeks that followed, Director Harrison found himself paying closer attention to the support staff moving through CIA headquarters. The quiet ones, the invisible ones, the people whose eyes seemed to notice more than their positions should allow. Because now he knew the truth that every intelligence professional eventually learns. The most dangerous people in any room are often the ones no one bothers to see. And sometimes, just sometimes, they're on your side.